Welcome back to the show. Nick is in Las Vegas. Greg Jennings is right here. We're going to head to Pittsburgh, where the Steelers have a brand new wide receiver and maybe a very old quarterback. DK Metcalf coming over from the Seahawks on a new 5-year deal for $150 million. He'll be catching passes from, we're not sure, but Aaron Rodgers has emerged as a candidate. Brew, do you like DK in Pittsburgh?
I do like him in Pittsburgh. Now with George Pickens, assuming they keep him, this is one of the most talented groups of receivers in the league. Now, as you said, Wiles, who's throwing them the football? I don't think you're giving DK Metcalf that type of money without knowing that you're going to have somebody capable of getting him the ball. Justin Fields, you wouldn't have maximized Metcalf and Pickens together. And not to mention the tight end's pretty good too, Pat Freiermuth, with Justin Fields. I guess they could bring back Russell Wilson. I guess my choice, and I've been saying it, I'm darn close to brushing off my shoulders.
Oh, wow.
All right? But I've been saying for a week, all off season essentially, Aaron Rodgers should be in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's
and I'm
great.
not saying he's going to lead them to the Super Bowl, because you guys know how I feel about Rodgers in championship games. But I am saying
They don't have to
need
worry
to
about
go
championship
get.
games.
Well, they better go get Aaron Rodgers. You gotta get Aaron Rodgers at this point.
Why? He's not good.
Who's going to throw the ball to DK Metcalf and George Pickens? And those two guys can get a little bit testy if they're not getting the rock.
Yeah.
And Rodgers has the cachet, right? He's Aaron Rodgers, future Hall of Famer. They will respect him, and I think that's the move for the Steelers, no doubt.
All right. Greg, before you go, first of all, I'm going to do something that's never been done, I don't think, Wilds, in sports TV history.
Okay.
I'm going to put up a quote that hasn't been said, but is definitely going to be said sometime in the next minutes, in the next 10 minutes.
There we go.
Dusty, if you would, please. This is a quote from Chris Broussard a few minutes from now. Listen, I'm not saying he was as good as his numbers, but Aaron Rodgers did have 28 touchdowns and 11 interceptions last year.
A version of that. A version, Nick.
Yeah,
Only six quarterbacks. Only six quarterbacks threw more touchdowns than Aaron Rodgers last year. That's it. And only 7 threw for more yards. There's a version of that.
Brew would love. So I knew Brew would love this because there's nothing Brew loves more than a true stat that he thinks he agrees is misleading. From the studio that brought you, I'm not saying Russell Wilson was as good as his numbers in 2023, brings you, I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers is as good as his numbers in 2024. But here's my concern, Greg, no matter who the quarterback is. I think they have to trade George Pickens. And I think they're going to trade George Pickens.
Wow.
And I think talking about DK and Pickens as if they're going to be a duo is somewhat of a fool's errand, and it's for 2 reasons. One, they're very similar wide receivers.
Very much.
Where they're dominant deep threats, but where their weaknesses are kind of on the rest of the route tree or intermediate stuff. That's the first point. Second point is this. George Pickens in a contract year. So I don't think they paid DK Metcalf $30 million a year, new money of $33 million a year to be the number 2 option, obviously. And I don't think they paid him with the plan of paying George Pickens big-time wide receiver money. And Greg, I don't know George Pickens personally, but I feel like I know George Pickens well enough that if you're saying, hey, going into this year, you're not getting paid and your targets are going down and you're a number 2, he might be a handful. He seems to be a handful all the time anyway. So I don't look at this as DK and Pickens. I look at this as DK with Pickens likely on the move. And we can get to the Rodgers stuff, after. But I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. From the Pittsburgh perspective, I thought it was a great move, them being aggressive, going and getting and acquiring another talented guy outside the lines as it pertains to the receiver position on the perimeter. That will as their roster stands right now, would attract somebody like an Aaron Rodgers, if you will, because we know he would need support, and would really solidify, okay, if we are going to move forward with both of these guys, who gives us the best option? And to be honest, it would look like seemingly Russell Wilson because of the skill set. And you mentioned the skill set, and that's where I want to circle up, because the skill set of both of these guys are identical. Identical. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they don't have a great skill set. They do. They just don't cover every base as you look at wide receivers as far as running the full route tree and what a quarterback that's coming in would need as far as separation on routes, how you get those intermediate routes, all those things. So I'm concerned about that aspect of it. From the DK perspective, he got paid. He wanted out of Seattle. He got that. He's going into another situation. All the things look good until he lines up and we're talking about who he's going to be looking to his left or to his right into to see who's throwing him the football. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm not excited about what it looks like for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward just because you acquired DK Metcalf.
Greg, can you dig into the full route tree? It's just like good with Russell Wilson's moonball, but Aaron Rodgers doesn't sling it like he used to. He's got very bad stats on those deep throws. Yeah. If it's Aaron Rodgers, you'd think you'd want someone more intermediary, right?
Yeah, so if you're going to look at Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback option, you're going to look at somebody who can create a little bit more separation. Like, he's not the Aaron Rodgers that can just throw guys open as we saw in Green Bay. That's no longer the Aaron Rodgers that they will be signing up for if they go to that option. As it pertains to Russell Wilson, he provides you the best deep ball, and he's thrown deep balls to both of these guys and had success with both of these guys. So I think that would be more of the option you would look at. But when I talk about the route tree, I'm not just talking about a slant, because they both can run a slant. They both can get big face, box out smaller defenders, and protect the quarterback from throwing the ball there. And then obviously down the field. When you talk about route tree and guys who run full routes, we're talking about Justin Jeffersons, the Jamar Chases of the world, the CeeDee Lambs, where you're getting the curl routes. And I know we see DK Metcalf get those balls and catch a hitch and then take it to the house. We see all the highlights, but we don't see him making those in cuts on a consistent basis, making those out cuts on a consistent basis. Like, he can do it, but that's not what gets him his bread butter. So for me, I don't know what it's going to look like, where you're headed, Nick, as it pertains to both of these guys may not be on the roster. Obviously, DK will be, but there might be an odd man out. In the 14 jersey might be available for DK sooner than later.
Not to take your job, Wilds, but I want to know from Nick and Greg, who should be quarterback next year for the Steelers? You think it should be Russ?
What I would say. Listen, you guys know what I think. I think the Steelers need to take their medicine and try to draft a young quarterback and continue doing that until they finally get a quarterback. Here's what I know they shouldn't do. Rerun the Jets season with a better head coach, because that's what Aaron Rodgers would be. Look at the talent. I mean, on paper, look at what they've got there. And then a questioned offensive coordinator. I promise you, Rodgers is going, if this is the team with DK and Pickens, I don't give it till mid-October before there are some not-so-subtle shots after a 2-interception Aaron Rodgers game of, yeah, we just need to make sure guys are where they need to be and make sure guys are running routes to the right depth. Yeah. Like,